Alright, I'm discovering new ways to lace the loom so that you can get different edgings. You can do this on the 3D printed loom also. You just follow the same sequence. Today I'm using the 36 pin circle. I think this might be probably about 2 inches or so, and I'm also going to start my thread a little bit different than I've done in the past. You need a really sturdy needle. You poke through the tail all the way to the back, and that way you don't have to tie that knot in the beginning. So I'm going to use a little pusher to get that needle farther in, and just pull the tail through and take the needle off. Secure the tail to the top of the loom from the back, just with a little pin here, and just push that in, and then now I can pull this tight, and I want to make sure it's holding really steady because I'm going to start lacing my loom with that secure there. So it's just coming out through a hole in the back. So I have not cut the thread off the ball of yarn yet. It's on the floor in a bowl. So that's where I'm going to be pulling my yarn supply from. Alright, I have my loom marked A and B. If you don't have letters, you can just put a pen, a colored pen or something like that, just to mark. But I'm going to go straight down to B, and I'm going to go around 2 pins clockwise. Then I'm going to go up to A and do the same thing, around 2 pins clockwise. And then I'm going to come back to the second pin that's already used. So I'm going to say old and new, and so I'm going to go around 2 pins again, but I'm going to go around an old one and a new one. And same thing at the top. I'm going to choose, I'm still going clockwise, I'm going to choose an old pin and a new one. And you'll know that you've done it wrong if you see a gap. There should be a little bar going between all the pins. So I'm going to come back down to this opposite side, go around an old pin and a new pin, all the way around. Old, new, old, new. I have to put my finger in the way on that one. So we're going to go all the way around, and I'm going to stop here to say that if you'll notice, when we get ready to secure these in the end, that this pin has a loop from one side and the other. So when we get ready to secure our edging, on the scallop edging, we would always take one leg from one pin and tie it to a leg or strand from another pin like that. But on this case, since we've looped across, these are 2 separate loops, and so we're going to tie them together right on the same pin. So I'm kind of jumping ahead just to get you to look at how these things go together. That's a separate loop and that's a separate loop. So I'm going to continue on around the loom, going around an old pin and a new pin until I get back to the other side. Alright, I'm nearing the end, and I can always tell when I am not finished because there's a gap between those 2 pins and a gap between these 2 pins. There needs to be a bar across all the pins, and I've got some of my pins pushed down, and there also needs to be 2 strands on every pin. So I've just come around an old one and a new one, so I'm going to come down here and go around an old one and a new one, always going clockwise. I don't know, my fingers are probably hiding some of that. And then I have this old one and new one. So go ahead and study all your stitches and make sure there's no broken line all the way around, and that you have 2 strands that are hanging on each one of those pins, and then you can kind of straighten everything out to the center. So what I do at this point is I'll take this strand that I still have not cut from the ball of yarn, and I'm just going to anchor it just to keep it out of my way and keep it taut. And then I'm going to go ahead and push all of my pins in all the way around. Alright, I've cut off a couple of arm lengths of thread that's comfortable for me to stitch with. It may even be a little bit too long and might start knotting up on me, but I can go ahead and release that pin. And I'm leaving the original pin that we had with the back string. We're going to do something with that one at the end. So let's see if I can move out a little bit. Alright, so I'm not going to go ahead and video all of the darning and all that because it's pretty much the same. On the first two rounds, the first round I'm going to darn under and over every pair that is on each spoke or each pin. So I'm going to go under. I always start with under. That's just what my habit is. And the next time I come back to A, I'm going to go over and then under. So that's going to be my first two rounds of darning. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I'll meet you back when I'm finished with that. I've made it all the way around with 2 rounds of darning. I always close the gap, even if you can't see the gap. This time, instead of tying a knot, I'm just going to pass my thread through. Most of the time, you just tie another knot on top of the beginning knot of the round. And you don't want to watch me with all my knots here because I'm not being as careful as I normally am. Sorry about that. Got too much thread here. Alright, try not to do that again. Alright, straightening things out here for a minute. Alright, so I've closed the gap, and the next round we're going to be making quite a large bundle. There's 36 pins on this loom, so I've decided instead of what we normally do to finish securing the center, we normally take one spoke or a pair or 2 pairs, but I'm going to take 3 pairs. And that's going to give us all of these little bundles all the way around eventually. So, alright, so I'm going to take 3 pairs, which is a total of 6 strands. And if my thread is in position here, I'm going to start with A and take that 3 pair. Now you're going to have to tie this one pretty tight because, get my thread in position here, because we're trying to tie so many together. If you have to, you can tie a second knot. I usually don't unless it's really giving me trouble. I just like the way it looks with just a single knot. So there's my first bundle. I'm going to pull it tight and then go on to the next bundle of 3 pairs. So that's 6 strands. I'm going to do that all the way around, and I'll probably come back before I close the gap. But either way, when you get to the end of this round, be sure you close the gap with another knot on top of the first one. So I'll come around and there will be a gap right here, so you can make another knot on top of this one here. Alright, here's my little gap. I am just going to, instead of grabbing the whole bundle and making a big old knot, I think I'll just grab a couple of strands just to close the gap, because I really need to get back over to another spot. So I'm just going to make that over 2 strands just to bridge the gap. So if it doesn't look right, then you can go ahead and just grab the whole bundle again. But I'm not going to worry about it on this video. As long as the gap is closed, I'm fine. So now I need to get ready for the next sequence. So I want to start my next knotting round on these 2 that are to the right of one of these groups of 3 pairs, one of these little bundles. I want to start to the right. So I'm going to travel over there by just sewing over over and over. I've already gone through that. Let me go through that. I'm not tying a knot, I'm just traveling over there, and that's, I'll probably do it one more time. I want to get right over that so it'll keep that little traveling stitch tidy. So whatever you have to do to get over to one of those. And I should not be using this long thread. Alright, so I'm in position to come down here on this strand, or this pair, and I'm going to do a knot around every single pair that's on the same pin. So there's another lady that writes patterns, and she calls these spokes. So every time you see a pin, that's a spoke, and you've got 2 threads on each spoke. So I'm going to go around that pair right there and make a knot. Let's see, these are a little more than a 1/4 inch down. These are the knots we just finished. I didn't follow a pattern or anything, so for me, I'm going to follow this second red line that I see underneath there. But if you're not using this particular pattern, or you can use the loom that you got in our class, the little 3D printed loom, and it has some grooves on it. So you can just choose one that's, probably about 3/8 of an inch down. I'm just guessing. So it's not like real critical to the design. You probably need more than a 1/4 inch to make it easier to make these little bundles later on. But we're going to skip on down, and I'm going to make a knot a little bit farther down. So I've got that little traveling thread that's going to go down without me tying a knot. You can tie off if you want to, but I'd like as few knots as possible. So I usually just travel down to the next spot. So I'm going to go all the way around, tying knots around every single pair or every spoke. So you should already know how to do that, so you don't need to watch me go all the way around. Just make sure you do it evenly on that circle and don't miss any of the pairs. Alright, I've got my gap right here. Here's I skipped over from A and did this one first, because there's my little traveling thread. So I've got to close that gap, and I'm going to be working in this area, so this time I'm going to make the knot below, because sometimes that knot can move around. So I'm going to anchor it below the previous knot on that the same one we started with. So that's got 2 knots on it now. So my gap is closed, and we're going to come up in here and bundle the same bundles that we did before. So we're going to start between 2 of these bundles here, and then bundle that again, and then come down and grab that bar, and then bundle and then grab the bar. So it's gonna pull up and make these kind of little scallop shapes. It just automatically does. So I don't want to start with this bundle because my thread is on the wrong side. So I am going to go ahead and I think I'm going to go ahead and make a knot on this bar because we've got 2 anyway. I could just pass my thread under, but I'm going to go ahead and make a knot between A and the last knot that we did. So now I want to come up and grab the same bundle that's bundled together there that we started off with. And they are a little tight, so it's kind of hard to get your needle under and over without grabbing something else. I think it's a little bit easier on the 3D printed loom than this one. But I've been using this one a lot because it's so much faster to get it going than the lacing of the other one. So I finished that bundle, pull it tight because they do want to slip back out. It's only a slip knot, so now I need to go to the next bar, so I turn my loom to make it easier. Make sure I'm still in the camera. Make sure my tail is going through. Alright, so it's already automatically just wants to make a little scallop there, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to go on to the next bundle. Pull it really tight. And then I'm going to go to that next bar that's between it and the next bundle. So I just keep turning my loom so that I can grab my needle comfortably to make my knot. And I'll grab one more bundle and then I'll meet you back on the other side. So you do a bundle, a bar, a bundle, a bar, a bundle, all the way around. Get my needle up and over. Alright, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm finishing up here. I've got a bar right here that I'm doing. And then the last bundle. And remember, we tied a knot here as our beginning, and I have no little arm going down. Now, you have to remember, we're still looking at the wrong side of the work. Even though this is very pretty like this with the knots, you can call it the right side, but generally we're going to have some knots and things and these traveling stitches showing. They don't look bad, so you could call this the right side if you want to. When you turn this over on the right side, you will see these little bars that go in between. It makes a decorative effect. So this round that we just finished is a good round to change colors, to use a contrasting color. So I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot in that same spot just to make another little arm to bridge the gap. Because, you know, it's the rule, you gotta tie a knot over the first knot of the round just to bridge the gap. Alright, so we've got room in here to do something else besides the edging, but on mine all I did was close the edging all the way around. But you could do a twisted stitch or something like that. We're not going to do that on this video because I covered it on another video. So it's your flower or whatever you want to call that, so you put whatever you want to in here. But we do have to secure these little loops that go around the pins, because remember we have a loop here that travels from one pin to the next, and then it kind of overlaps the next one, and as we wound around. So what we're going to do is we're going to travel down with this thread. You can tie a knot and cut it off if you want to. I usually don't. And we're going to be putting our pin or our needle through these spokes. We're going to tie these two threads together because they are separate loops and they need to be secured. So I'm going to try to find the best place for my thread to travel down so that I can end up down here. So I think that I'm going to move on to the next one that is at A. You can decide whatever you want to do. I may just tie another knot around A. I think that's going to be... No, let's see if I can get my needle in there without disturbing that knot. Sometimes if you poke your needle in through a knot, it destroys it. And I can't. So you got to decide what's the neatest way to get your needle down there. And I think I'm going to have to tie a knot onto something to get me over there. Sometimes you can just overstitch like I've done previously to get yourself in line, and that's going to work out good because I want my securing stitch to be as close to the pin as I can get it. It usually will ride up a little bit, but to begin with I'm going to tie my knots as close as I can. So I'm getting ready to tie the pair that is on this one pin. That's just 2 strands. And I'm going to do that all the way around. And then go on to the next one. So this round goes pretty fast, but you have a lot of them to do. You have 36. So I shall meet you back to close this thing up. Alright, it's pretty easy to see when I follow those knots around that I have a gap here. This is where I usually get in a hurry to take the thing off the loom, and a lot of times your thread is a close match to your pattern or your loom and you don't see that. So just always check. And so I'm just going to tie another couple of knots to finish this off. I actually have room on my web to do an interlacement stitch here, which would be really pretty, or another row of knots, but I kind of like this lacy look here, so I'm not going to fill it up, but that's your choice. You can fill your web up with anything you want. So I just thought that this was kind of a neat technique where you bind these little bundles up and you make little scallops around the edge. So I would normally put some fray check on there and cut it about 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to take this off the loom and show you what it looks like on the right side. So the first thing I usually do is take this pin out, because sometimes I forget that this thread is still attached to our, let's see if I can back out a little bit. This little thread that we drove through to the back of the loom is still attached to our lace. So if I get in a hurry, sometimes I'll yank on that lace and I forget that it's still tied up. So now that is free and it'll pull through. So all I have to do is pull my pins out and get this off of the loom. So if you're using the 3D printed loom, then just go ahead and cut that loose now. My last little 3D printed puller thing, I was trying to recreate this. I've tried some other things that work too, but this is my newest 3D printed version. I've got a bobby pin down in there with the little curve to catch the pin, and then I've got the pin pusher on this other side. I don't think this one's going to break as easily because it's got the bobby pin going down inside of it. And the last one, the tip was really long and it just cracked when it hit the floor. So you know, it's not that expensive to print. So, but I like it pretty well. It pulls those pins out pretty good, and then you can push with the other end. So far I like it. So I'm going to test this out and see how long it lasts, or I may throw a few of them on the ground just to see if they break easily. But I like messing around with making my own tools. Alright, so since that is free, I should be able just to pull my lace right off. Just like that. That's the wrong side. Looks pretty good. It's pretty. And then that's the right side. So what you see is a little bit of these little loops kind of peeking out from behind. So if that were in a contrasting color, it would be really pretty. So all I have to do is pass that through to the other side, and I don't have my needle threader handy, so I'll try to get it in there without splitting the yarn. And I usually try not to pierce on my way through. I'll just wiggle it through an empty place just up under the bundle. And then I don't pull this tight because it is still part of this lacing in the middle. And if you pull it too tight, you may pull something out of whack. So I'll just tie a little knot there on the back and put some fray check on that. But that came out really cute.